Good morning, Kadena Army, Kadema fam. How's everyone doing? Welcome back to Campfire. I'm Tyler Benster, and this is community call number 14. This time we have a very exciting new guest / new person on the rotation. This is our new head of developer relations, Glenn Reyes. Glenn, welcome to the stream.
How's it going, everybody?
Awesome
Great
to
being
have
here.
you here, man. How are you today?
Doing great. Yeah, can't complain.
Right on. So we're going to jump in and get to know Glenn. But as usual, we'll stick to our typical format of giving a quick introduction, or rather, I should say, a quick update and discussion, and then we'll go into an introduction and a live Q&A. We'll be monitoring folks' comments and questions on Discord, on YouTube, and so please feel free to chime in, and we'll try and get as many people's questions and comments featured as we can. So great to see so many folks here already in the morning or afternoon, wherever you may be dialing in from. So briefly on updates, if you missed last week's Campfire, definitely go back and check out the YouTube recording, as we had Kadena's two founders, Will Martino and Stuart Popejoy, on the stream. And that was a really, really fantastic and vibrant Campfire. So be sure to check that out in case you missed it. And otherwise, there was Tech Bulletin number 3 that was released. So I'm going to try and actually add a comment from the last Campfire. Yes, here it is. So if you missed the last Campfire, here's the YouTube link for that. And then we also have Tech Bulletin number, actually, I guess it's number 3 has been released, which includes details about PAC 4.7, about KDA command line tools, and of course, the PAC Core series by Thomas Honeyman is complete with the 3 development articles, as well as the code repos, as well as a language server protocol that has been released as well. That's huge news for developers that use VS Code or any IDE that supports language servers. And finally, Kadena Academy workshop is going strong. And so really excited to see how folks build coming out of that workshop. So a lot going on the technical side, as you can see. And so what better time to have our new head of Devrel on than today. Glenn, would love to hear just a little bit about yourself, where you're located, and how you found yourself in this hot seat today.
Yeah, so maybe to introduce myself real quick again. So I'm Glenn. I'm the head of developer relations engineer in Kadena now. So I'm here based in Vienna, Austria. So I'm a real guy living in Europe. The first time I've met people from Kadena was actually at a conference in Amsterdam called JS World Conference, where I've been talking to people, mostly the developer experience team from over there. So we were chatting about, wallets and how Kadena is doing stuff compared to, other blockchains like on the EVM. And basically, I wasn't actually thinking much about it, but Randy, who was the person who was mainly talked to, basically reached out to me after the conference, asking me, "Hey, what are you doing?" kind of stuff. And I was like, "Hey, I'm going to conferences and doing conference talks about all kinds of things around JavaScript and React." And he found it really, really interesting, and we ended up like working together. And now I'm here at Kadena to basically do the things here at Kadena, and hopefully I'll be able to, advance basically the front end and web technology that we're doing here to the community, and circling all the things around that I get from there into the internals, and hopefully we can build cool stuff together.
Right on. And Glenn, I'm curious, for those that aren't as familiar, how would you define the developer relations role?
Yeah, so the developer relations role is kind of tricky. So for me, it's actually the first time that I actually have this role. So I've been doing kind of the things that a developer relations person is probably doing in the past, but not in a way, not from me like defining me as a developer relations person. So currently, the goal is, try to communicate with developers from not only like internal but also with others by going going to the events, or by talking to them, or by sharing some articles, everything around in the JavaScript and also React ecosystem. Sharing the things that we're doing or we're challenging with, and trying to find some strategies over here as well. So I think something that I haven't taken on a lot yet is basically doing content creation, but in terms of targeting the JavaScript and React community. I think there's a community that is great in Kadena living, that is mostly targeted in the Web3 area. But I'd love to see also people coming from the more technical perspective, in terms of JavaScript and these kind of people also here to have them engaged with the things that we're building.
Yeah, if you look at the developer market, of course, JavaScript is enormous in terms of the mind share and just how many folks are employed building and maintaining applications, typically web applications in JavaScript. So
exactly,
makes sense that there's a huge market there. I'm curious if you think about some of those developers, and I'm in the Bay Area, and so sometimes I'll drive around and I'll see a Twilio billboard, and it has some memorable moniker about, ask your engineer about Twilio. And in a few years ago, I had built a Twilio app just as a personal thing for fun. And one of the things that company is well known for is having just such a seamless and easy onboarding process where you can go from signing up and creating an account to having a real functional phone number that you have programmatic control over, menus or what it says and that sort of thing. And just a matter of half an hour or so. And so I was curious, if you were to dream and imagine what a developer onboarding experience might look like for Kadena, what's the North Star? What would be kind of the dream or the user story you'd like to see?
Probably, so for everything, as a developer, for everything I'm asking for, getting an answer right away. So that was really a dream that you can get. So if you're struggling with something, ideally there is somebody who is just next to you, and then just giving you the correct answer right away. I think it's super valuable to have, as for like if you were joining somewhere, if there is some mentor who can help you right away with all the things, answer you some questions. And it doesn't have to be like one single person, but it can also be like multiple. It can even be like somebody artificial, like AI, somebody who can just answer something that you really didn't know about right away. That would be super nice. But the worst thing that can happen as a developer is just getting stuck and then struggling, like spending lots of time with struggling things that could be like easily fixed by someone who knows that a little bit better. And I guess after all, it's just about getting the correct, or getting good help overall is super valuable as for getting on board at somewhere, being a developer.
Yep. No, that makes sense. It's about removing the friction and the hurdles to developing and to going through tutorials and to building your own app. And the
exactly
fewer sticking points there are, then the more likely you are to convert someone from the beginning of the funnel where they started, they hit the build tab on the website, and to the end of the funnel where they're deploying a real live project. Yeah, I'm curious, when you look at the developer market and you look at the JavaScript market, is there a certain profile of a developer that you think would be able to pick up Pact or pick up Kadena.js more easily?
Yeah, I think like personally, I think it's very rare to find JavaScript developers finding their way into Web3. It was super hyped, I think, the past couple of years, where we were like super into the bull market. Everything was super, everything went super green. But right now, everyone feels kind of happy with everything around AI, like GPT and things like that. So it kind of like went behind in the JavaScript community in terms of. So that means also that currently everything like in the Web3 community is like kind of like behind the vision, unless you work actively on things. I don't know. But overall, if you are now looking for JavaScript developers or getting them into Web3, it's going to be hard, or it's going to be it's going to be a long way coming. So myself, I have run a workshop on a conference to just bring basically JavaScript or React developers, bringing them more closer into Web3 by teaching them like all the fundamentals about how to set up how to work with a framework to build some smart contracts on top of blockchain EVM, and getting them to teach about smart contracts, how you interact with that, and how to build artifacts, and then creating clients around that on the web. These kind of things are a lot of things, and this can be quite frustrating to just do it in one day. So overall, I think there is different kinds of developers. So developers who are super enthusiastic about about crypto and about tokens and how the technical side of things works. So these are definitely easier to get onboarded into these kind of topics. But as for JavaScript developers, getting them convinced into about or asking them about Kadena, have you heard about Kadena? It's going to be probably 99% a no from all the JavaScript developers, as and even with probably Ethereum, it's going to be hard, to getting people that are just aware with crypto already. So I wanna change that. So I wanna actually I wanna still convince them that is actually a great thing. It's just still really early. Everything is not ideal. What I see from a regular user's perspective. So if I would show I don't know, my relatives how to how to interact with Chainweaver, or how to interact with anything that is crypto related, with wallets, or even they are getting lost. So they don't know what to do. They didn't even know what it is and what to do with that. So I think there's a lot of work from the UX perspective also that I think can be super nice at some point, once we are there, once we're on mainstream. And I think it's a long way coming still, but definitely some of the things that can be explored.
Awesome. So we have some questions in the live Q&A that we're going to jump to. Some of them are all I can take from the Kadena Eco side, and looks like we may have some for you as well. So first, from #2272, is Francesco still with Kadena? Yes, Francesco is very active with Kadena and Kadena Eco. He'd been heads down working on some of the tech roadmap in the past couple months, and in the past month or so, been very focused on growing the BD team, among other activities. So there's been a bunch of new hires onto the team, and a lot of excitement for what's to come here. And I know that community has met at least one of those hires 2 weeks ago, I believe. And so hopefully we'll get some more folks on soon too. Let's see here. Scrolling down from Luke Kreisman. Hey, Tyler, can you give any estimate on the number of grantees who have been accepted but aren't announced yet? Luke, I'll just very vaguely say that it's more than 1 and less than 10. All right, let's see here. And from Owais Ahmed, how many projects are working on Kadena Chain? When will they be delivered? So there's this awesome website called KadenaEcosystem.com that you should definitely look at, as it is listing more than 100 projects that are building on Kadena. And there's pretty cool sorting options, and you can see by category, by status, by keyword. And so I'm just looking right now. It says, it doesn't give me the count of how many are live versus beta in development, but you can click those toggles and get an idea pretty quickly. But yeah, that's an awesome website. I check it fairly frequently because they do a really good job of adding new projects on there when they come. And let's see here. From KDA Minor, good morning. Do you guys think that getting a stable up and running will play a big role in bringing devs over, as it gives them the ability to crowdfund safely in volatile markets? Glenn, I might pass that one off to you first, and I can chime in with other details as useful.
Yeah, I don't know. As for me, I think it's pretty nice. I think it's okay. Probably there will be some specific runway that will be fine for me. So I don't have much insights actually into that. So it's a great market overall. There is definitely a lot of projects that are looking for great developers, and they're definitely can find some good roles to be there and to help projects growing.
Yeah, so I think it's an interesting question. So I do think that stablecoins make it easier to develop applications with certain needs. So for example, if you're going to start a DEX, or if you're going to start a payments type of protocol or application that requires sending money over the wire, where you want the recipient to be able to hold on to it for several weeks before cashing it out, for example, there's a number of applications I think are well established where stablecoins really, really thrive. So certainly if you're a developer and you want to build something in a domain that requires stable store of value, then naturally stablecoins become pretty critical. So I do think that it will play a role in enabling devs to build new things. And it may play a role in bringing devs over that have a particular vision as to what they want to build. Namely, they want to build something around the payment space, or they want to build something around store of values. And stablecoins are just pretty essential, particularly for the store of value.
Yeah, I think I did the question wrong. So thank you for answering that actually. So
yeah, no worries. But yeah, I mean, the ability to crowdfund safely in volatile markets, I think that's an interesting point. And that's something that I think remains to be seen to some extent around fundraising. And I think there's been a bit of a dip in fundraising, at least in the native crypto project side over the past 3 to 6 months. But interestingly enough, there hasn't been a huge dip on in the private investor, VC, angel side. There's still a lot of funds and even DAOs that have raised funds in the bull market that now have a lot of capital and dry powder to deploy. And so I do think actually for developers that the stablecoin question is maybe a little bit less relevant now, or call it mid 2023 compared to earlier in 2022 or early 2023, simply because there's so much accessible fiat currency for fundraising, for folks to raise money, get a seed round together, and then pursue a new project. So I do think that there's sort of a flip side here, which is because there's been such a big growth and explosion in crypto, there's now, I would argue, more cash than developers in the space. And so that provides a lot of opportunity for talented devs to say, or even, I shouldn't say talented, I should say for hardworking devs to say, look, I want to come in, I want to learn Web3, I want to learn Kadena.js and build those skills, start building applications. And I think that an ability to raise capital may follow those technical skills. Let's see what other questions we got going on here. All right. So maybe we can provide some clarity here for Ms. Stango. I don't get it. Last week you were saying a major part of strategy is to get devs to adopt Pact, mentioning from Java. Now we're saying this is doubtful, not a consistent message. So first of all, I want to clarify that Java and JavaScript are two different languages. That's a common point of confusion. Java is a back-end enterprise language. JavaScript is a front-end web developer language. So we're talking about JavaScript here. Now, getting devs to adopt Pact, yes, definitely still a big goal. Pact is going to be running everywhere on Kadena, on Chainweb, on layer 2s, on other blockchains. And so that's absolutely a huge goal. At the same time, increasing accessibility to existing ecosystems is also a priority. Glenn, I'm curious what thoughts you have to add here.
Yeah, so as you have mentioned, there's a lot of things going on with Pact and all the other things, but there's also there's a huge ecosystem around actually JavaScript that brings or connects, close the gap between developers that's coming from this kind of ecosystem and Web3. So it's going to be interesting how this ends up going.
Right on. Got a question from Scorpion. Can you share a major challenge you faced in maintaining developer relations?
Yeah, so some of the challenges that I'm facing with maintaining that is basically scheduling and timing. So there's a lot of things that I have as my responsibility now, being like developer relations, like getting sponsorships together, writing articles, doing some content, preparing for conference talks, and also then while talking to our developers internally at Kadena. And also like even building internal stuff with that, and then having the meetings with them all together. Everything all together is like a lot of things that needs to be done, especially for me being the only one right now. But we're looking to grow soon with a couple more developer relations people here. So that's a challenge. So you have to. There's a lot of things that we wish that we could be doing, but it's just it's just lacking time, and probably lacking also a little bit of time management that I hope gets better soon at some point.
Right on. Thanks for that. Let's see your point from Palu. I think it's a game changer for devs if they can create, save cheap and fast smart contracts on a scalable chain. I understand that a Solidity Maxi is in his space, but meme hype has shown up. I don't fully understand the point, but I think I understand the gist, which is that, developers being able to quickly and cheaply make smart contracts that operate quickly and are scalable is huge. I think some of us have heard these horror stories on Ethereum on occasion where a developer needs to upgrade a smart contract and has to pay a massive gas fee in order to do so. And having that scalability is important even for developers, not just for the users transacting. So I think that's a fairly insightful point that is often missed. If you're trying to iterate rapidly and develop, that you have to pay a bunch of money each time you deploy your software, then you can deploy less. So I think that's true. But yeah, I think hyping up meme hype for programming languages tends to be a little bit less. I think developers tend to be a bit more technically minded. But then again, I will say that if you look at Pythonistas or Rustaceans, there's definitely been some degree of memes in programming languages, whether it's Monty Python references or super cow powers or anything. So it's also somewhat interesting to think about how we can use the power of the meme to try and market some of our own developer initiatives. So I think there's probably some truth to how we can leverage community a little more. So maybe if I could turn a question on to you, Glenn, how might you conceive of leveraging the reach of community and trying to speak to a broader dev audience?
I mean having kinds of fun with these kind of stuff is really great. But I still like to believe in the focus on whatever DAO or whatever organization is doing. I think having this kind of around is great. But for me personally, I think still it's important to creating some trust is more important than creating like community than that just just fooling around. It's definitely something that I'm not looking into. But yeah, so trust over community, definitely.
Interesting. All right. I see a couple of comments in chat around with questions around price. As you well know, we do no price talk on any Kadena channels, and that's for securities laws reasons and trying to stay on the right side of all regulations. Question from Koala Wallet for Glenn. How do you think Kadena can bring more devs to build on Kadena, and what hurdles do they need to overcome to do so?
So yeah, there's definitely some hurdles with some of the apps that we currently have. So we're trying to improve these definitely by building probably new stuff. Definitely, what helps also is what the Kadena ecosystem has been building. So really huge kudos to our friends from Yuko Labs building Kadena, building the Koala wallet. We've been working on also improving our docs. So this is definitely something that can be some friction for other developers to build on top of Kadena. Something that we're actively working on, and lots of other things. I'm really excited to show you about once we're there.
Right on. Let's see here. Looking for some more questions. Here we go. We'll take another one from Koala Wallet. What is the best way for developers in the ecosystem to help the core team with building the dev experience?
So as for the Kadena JS team, we have a Kadena JS repository publicly up on GitHub. So this is the same repository we're working on actively with all kinds of stuff. So we are currently also are in discussion of maybe some improving some of the stuff. But definitely, if you want to contribute or want to improve some of the things, definitely we're looking forward for you putting up issues, maybe putting up some pull requests that you think can be more approachable for you. So that's definitely the best way to reach out to us through the Kadena JS repository and GitHub. Plus, if you wanna contact us, or if you wanna have some conversations with us, feel free to reach out on Discord, and we try to help you, or try to get some response if you wanna need some more help and things like that.
Right on. So we have a question from Kobe. Will you be traveling to more conferences? Any that you're most excited for?
Yeah, I will. So I have a couple of conferences coming up. So two on next week. So one is in Brussels, and another one is in Oslo. And after that, I'll be meeting with the team. And after that, I have a couple of other ones set up also. So these are, I think, mostly kind of mainstream conferences where I meet not only people from the JavaScript community, but probably also people that are doing DevOps and these kind of stuff, or cloud engineers. I think I was super excited about the conference that I had last week, which was RemixConf. So it's mostly developers who are working on Remix. But for next one, I'm looking really forward to the one in Alicante, React Alicante, where I'll be just doing a workshop about GraphQL, which is a schema language for building backend services.
Very good. And we have a question from Björn Des. What's your main goal / focus for the near future?
Yeah, so I would like to. So we have grown our team immensely the past couple of weeks, past couple of months. So I myself just joined 1.5 months ago. So I think my main goal here is to first find a good strategy to help us being super productive with all the things that we're building. So we are trying to get some of the stuff as soon as possible, as shipped as we can. So I think one of the next things will be hopefully the docs, as we are currently building like a lot of primitives around that we need for that, like the UI and things like that. So but personally, my focus and my main goal is to getting a lot of other developers onboarded on Kadena, and growing the community, but not in terms of Web3, but also from the web and from front end people.
Right on. I'm curious, in your conference going so far, when you're talking to developers, is there a certain set of features or requirements that they tend to be looking for, or especially talking with folks from the Web 2 world, are they more still in this exploratory mindset of just trying to figure out what the heck is all going on over there?
So it's mostly like this, where you have, it depends on really the conference, or on the conference what the theme of the conference is. So if it's like a conference that targets like all kinds of different developers, then probably they're looking for more like what is currently important to them. For example, as for building UIs, what are the ins and outs for building React components at scale. So for me, when I'm speaking at these kind of conferences, I try to focus on mostly what I'm really good at. So that's probably React and then JavaScript. Mm-hmm. But if I'm at React conferences, then I can there try to get React developers more engaged with Web3, for example, or maybe try to talk about something very specific to the front end, like talking about UX scenarios or something like that. So it really depends on the conference, and most of them have different kind of people that talk about all of the or talk about the things that are currently like super interesting and super helpful and valuable for other people's. It's hard to talk about their what Kadena.js internally is building, or what Web3 is generally for, because it doesn't target every, like if I was at a conference and I wanted to listen about something that is something JavaScript specific, it's going to be hard, or it's going to be not as effective as if I was just talking about something about accessibility in JavaScript, as if I was talking about building Pact in JavaScript, because not everyone needs Pact in their use case that are attending the conference. So it's important there to be talking about the things that is going to be helpful for everyone, or as for most people as possible. So yeah, that's why it's a little bit of a challenge for me also, because you're not at a Web3 conference trying to pitch your company and trying to pitch things that you are doing. So you're basically there trying to tell them stories about challenges that you're facing within a company, by showing them stuff not Kadena specific, but maybe stuff that we're facing internally about I don't know, building the UI, like what framework to use for styling the components that we build and things like that. So yeah, I think that's important, and I think that's a goal that we wanna go from there.
Makes sense. I'll give my own personal plug for Tailwind CSS. Big fan for front end folks out there.
I love that too. That's my go-to as well.
Right on.
We are, by the way, we are looking now into vanilla extract, as the team has really super big passion about building components that have that are componentized and can have or have like class variants, kind of like API built in. So that's something that the UI team currently is super passionate about. So we're looking into that currently, but yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Very cool. Yeah, I'll have to look that one up. That's a new one to me. But then again, I'm not a front end developer. Just
it's it's created by the same author who's created CSS modules. So it was one of the first really good CSS isolated CSS solutions that you had out there. So basically, you were writing CSS, but you get generated or hashed class names.
Got it. Cool. Yeah. We got a fun, maybe more personal question from Jimmy Dos Hotep. What's your dog's name, and what kind of dog do you have?
I don't have a dog here.
Oh, you don't have a dog. Well,
I'm here in my my external office space. But probably you're hearing a dog from another neighbor who is also like renting another office space. I'm hearing it well, yeah. So I don't know the name. I don't even know who is there. Yeah.
Well, we'll find out and report back. Do some investigation.
Definitely.
Good question from Laura Clatter. What attracted you to Kadena?
What attracted me to Kadena? So I had some Web3 experience in the past, so I thought, why not doing that again? And that from a different perspective. And basically, the offer was really nice. Being able to do the things I'm really passionate about. But the thing that like engaging with other developers, like allowing me that during my work time is like amazing. So that all connects a little bit, and I thought it was a good opportunity after all.
Right on. All right. So we have a interesting question from Koala Wallet. You mentioned GraphQL. How will this benefit the Kadena ecosystem, and why take that route versus other API options? I'm not sure if your comment about GraphQL was Kadena specific or more of a workshop you're doing in general, but would be curious in any case to hear.
Yeah, so we have one project that we are trying to explore if it's a good fit. So that's something that we try to create a GraphQL API layer on top of our Chainweb data infrastructure. So that's something that we are looking into building internally. So it depends on the use case for the question why take that route versus other APIs. So we try to figure out if actually this is a good way to do, because it offers, as far as understood, a way, like an easy way to subscribe to something, and that could be an ideal use case, for example, for transactions, to see what status the transactions has, and that's something that we try to explore here in this. Versus other APIs, so GraphQL has its own pros and cons versus, for example, REST. There is this low friction when you try to fetch things, so you prevent like overfetching and things like that. But at the same time, it can be like super over engineered for simple things. So we're trying to figure out what works and what not, and see what works better after all.
That makes sense. I like this question from Triz. Good morning. What features of Kadena do you use more, or you mention more, when you want to promote it and attract developers? And
yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. So I have, like, for me personally, I've been here for 1.5 months, and in this time I had to prepare a lot of other things than looking into internals of Kadena. So that's something I'm definitely trying to figure out in the next few weeks. But as of today, I'm still learning what all the people internally are trying to build, or and we're still growing with more developers. So I hope to get a more granular question for this, maybe at some point in the future.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll throw in a quick answer for now, which is, I think when I talk with developers, some of the key things that they seem to be attracted to are gas stations. So the idea that you can deploy an application and onboard a user and have no gas fees shown to them. is critical if you want to be able to have someone do a transaction that touches the blockchain without needing to go through the messy process of going to an exchange, buying some KDA, exporting it to a wallet, then using the wallet to sign something. So you can circumvent all those steps just by using gas stations. So that's amazing from an ease of use and user onboarding perspective. So second, I would say that devs care about security and safety of their code. And of course, in crypto, audits are important. And as part of the grant program, everyone goes through an audit now. And so big believers in audits and some of the peace of mind and that process can bring. But also having features like formal verification baked into the programming language itself is absolutely huge. Developers are oftentimes people with a growth mentality that want to learn new concepts, be exposed to new ideas and new paradigms that will ultimately make them a better programmer. And with Pack, they're getting perhaps their first introduction to formal verification and the ability to write programs that are mathematically proven to be correct across a certain feature, like no coins can be created or destroyed, or negative transactions can occur. So that's, I think, a really cool sort of intellectual draw for someone to dive into Pact and dive into Kadena. And then finally, I think Chainweb and just knowing that you will have low gas fees and scalability for forever is I think a huge draw. Knowing that you can go and start to build your application on Kadena, and even if other applications grow or if your application grows too big for one chain, you can scale horizontally across other chains, and that you can continue to build and grow your business as your transaction volume scales without being hindered by gas fees, I think is huge. Because otherwise you get into the challenge that, for example, Axie Infinity faced, where their entire tokenomics and growth scheme had to be predicated on these high gas fees, driving them towards these really, really high cost NFTs, and ultimately driving them to develop their own sidechain, Ronin, which had a spectacular hack that is a classic issue if you force an application developer to start developing a base layer. And so I think with Kadena, devs can rest assured that if they build on Kadena, that we'll be able to scale them as long as their application needs them to. Let's see here. I'm jumping back onto the questions. Sorry, I may have lost the thread here. I'm always happy for lessons, but I missed which lesson I should get. Let's see. From Johnny G, what other blockchains do you believe are Kadena's competitors?
I think you can give a more accurate answer to that, Tyler.
Yeah, sure, yeah. So I think it's an interesting question. I mean, on some level, if you look at proof of work, there aren't many other proof of work coins out there. There's Bitcoin, there's Dogecoin, but smart contract programming languages are pretty minimal on those. I mean, Bitcoin does have some.
Yeah, is there actually any other projects or blockchains that leverages blockchains with multiple chains, or is there any other?
Yeah, so there's been some that do more of a graph-based approach to having blocks in a graph structure. Kadena uniquely has a static graph that sort of Chainweb structure, so you can think about each of these blocks as being associated with the chain, right. Even though block in some sense sort of floats on its own. So there are folks that have, I think IOTA and others have done sort of more of these graph-based type of structures, but turns out there's some drawbacks there. But I think in terms of competitors, it's interesting. So each blockchain makes its own technical implementation and its own different trade-offs in terms of where they excel and where.
Yeah, I think it's hard to actually define something as being as a competitor, because every project that you see outside has some its own focus on something or its own unique thing that not many others are doing the same. So it's hard to find basically competitors, I think.
Yeah.
You cannot compare also Kadena with Ethereum or with, as you mentioned, Doge, which is more like a hype coin or something like that. So at Kadena, like versus Doge, there is actually something going on technically. So we have a use case. We have our own smart contract language, and yeah, it's hard, to specify someone else being as a competitor, because after all, we're not really competing to each other, but we are, building and trying to contribute to each other,
Yeah.
and helping find new ideas together. So that's, I think, more we should look into it. So
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly other ecosystems that we look to for inspiration and comparison. Whether it's Solana or Near or Avalanche, and I think there's a lot of blockchains that do really strong work in terms of building developer communities, and that we can take learnings and inspiration from. But ultimately, I think more than any particular blockchain being a competitor, Postgres, MySQL, backend databases hosted on Amazon Web Services are competitors to blockchain overall. And so there's always a tension between how easy it is to develop on centralized infrastructure versus the greater difficulty and less control that you have over application performance when you deploy on distributed and decentralized infrastructure. And so I think if you were to look at the grand scheme of things, if a developer is choosing between centralized versus decentralized, given how straightforward it is to build a centralized service with high I/O and uptime, etc., the real competitor is saying, can you find enough benefit from having a distributed and decentralized application where you're better off going the blockchain route compared to the centralized Web 2 route? So I see that as the biggest competitor right now. And I think increasingly there are applications and use cases, whether it's in finance, in DeFi, in payments, in some gaming applications, in NFTs or art, where we've sort of seemed to come on a consensus that, yes, there's enough of an advantage in distributed and decentralized processing that this can only work or should only be done in a blockchain Web3 space. And I think as we create more areas like that, the growth of the space will continue. But I think it's an interesting question to think about what the competitive landscape is. And I would actually sort of reframe this as saying, really the big competitor is Web 2 centralized approaches to building. All right. I think we are coming towards the end of our time here. But let's take maybe one or two last questions. So we have a question from One Hitaquita. As a developer, where do you see EVM technology going in the near future? Can EVM crypto advance or evolve?
I think so, yeah. I mean, I'm not very much involved currently in the EVM ecosystem right now, but I can see there's definitely a lot of things going on, especially with this big thing happened last year. Moving everything into proof of stake. So there's definitely a lot of things going on, and I believe there's a lot of things that the developers over there trying to help to reach their goals and to reach the roadmaps. Whatever EVM is trying to achieve. So I think right now it is. I think it is to try to get everything as cheap as possible, and I think the next goal will be to try to get it as low cost as possible as well, with things like sharding and things like that. So
look, I think EVM is here to stay. EVM has a first mover advantage in terms of the smart contract ecosystem, and there's been a lot of important code that operates that has been written for the EVM. But I would draw an analogy to the early days of computing and say that the same was true of DOS. DOS was and continues to be an important part of business code and business logic for a lot of companies. Some maybe don't even remember DOS or haven't heard of it. MS-DOS maybe rings more of a bell, but early Windows was working with these DOS programs. And even though nobody really developed new ones after the year 2000, they continue to be supported for decades afterwards. And Windows operating systems can still run them. And so I think what that sort of highlights is that code that's written in early days continues to be important and needs to be maintained and used for many years to come. But a company in 2023 isn't going to go back and use this old paradigm with this super janky programming language and a lot of really terrible flaws in the modern era. And my personal prediction is that the same thing will come to pass with EVM. EVM has some really terrible flaws in it that are foundational, that can't be fixed. But because the code is so important, EVM support will be critical as a blockchain ecosystem for a long time to come. But I think we'll see increasingly developers on new projects developing in different code solutions. And Ethereum will continue, I think, to support. And there's other folks that are trying to build higher level programming languages that compile onto EVM, and that's one way of approaching. Or there's a layer 2 approach of saying we'll only touch EVM when we need to actually bring transactions back down to the base layer. Otherwise, we can operate on a layer 2 using some different programming language environments. And so I think EVM will more and more become this webbing language that draws things together and helps bind these different aspects of the ecosystem onto certain ledgers. But it won't be the last story in terms of what programming languages and what Web3 development experiences look like, because otherwise we're going to be stuck in our 20,000 odd developer landscape, as opposed to the 20 million developer landscape we might hit if we go after some of the JavaScript and React programmers. So I think that there's a huge growth to be had in the direction that Glenn is working in. And we're so excited to have someone with Glenn's background and some experience with workshops and connecting with developers on board in a developer relationships role. I think it'll be really interesting to see, Glenn, your progress over the next 6 months or a year or so, and look forward to checking in and hearing about your journey into Kadena once you've settled in more and have more time to court developers. Really exciting road ahead.
Definitely.
Glenn, do you have any closing thoughts or anything you want to leave the community with?
Yeah, well, thank you for joining. I'm super happy that I'm here. If there's anything you wanna say, come find me on Twitter. I'm Glenn Reyes on Twitter, but without the E's, so it's going to be GLNN RYS. So feel free to leave me a DM or whatever thoughts you have. I'm the same thing on most other social medias as well. So if you don't feel like Twitter, just feel free to hit me up somewhere else. I think that's all I have. Also, check out my website. It's glennreyes.com. You'll find probably more things about me over there.
Right on. Well, Glenn, thanks so much for tuning in, and Kadena fam, Kadena Army. Till next time, look forward to seeing you on Kadena Community Call number 15. All right, folks, be well. Enjoy your week now.
See ya. Bye.